How do you describe yourself as an artist and creator?
I write from an often like liminal place. Most of like I think most of like the aesthetic that I like I'm drawn to in like movies and like movie scenes and even just like Instagrams, like very like liminal photos and footage, like abandoned train stations and stuff. And I think my music sometimes reflects that. And I usually write in kind of weird hours where it's like a bit more quiet in my head.
What about the liminal space, that transition space draws? What are you drawn to in that space?
No one's there, like visually and like symbolically. I don't know why it's just so quiet for me. I like always. I think I listened to the Burial Untrue album like when I was like 13 or 14, and obviously you don't know when you're that young why something resonates with you, but it just sounded like it came from the outside of he like wrote it from like the outside of places, like he was outside the club, he was outside the train station, or it was like 3 a.m. at the bus stop where there's just like one other person. There's just yeah, I think it drives me visually, and I'm just drawn to it.
Yeah, that liminal space is just such it's almost like you're in it, but you're also an observer, right? Of that
Yeah,
reality, of that space. Like you're saying, being outside of the club, looking in, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and
100%.
the space and the time it's happening. It's
Yeah,
like you're like a fly on the wall of
yeah,
it, and you're like I think sonically to comment on it is like something it brings it more to light. I think if that's why I love that Burial album because it sounded like echoes of places
yeah,
put into like one kind of sonic identity, which I thought it was just like I was blown away.
yeah, yeah. And outside of that, are there any overarching themes or through lines in your music that you're really exploring right now?
Like solitude, not as like a vitriolic thing, more like the relationship of how solitude can be damaging, uplifting, but it needs to be in relation to like having a good relationship with yourself, having a good relationship with the space you inhabit, like when you walk in anywhere. But I think being able to be alone with yourself, I think, is a big theme of the album, and being okay with being alone with yourself, and also not being okay with being alone with yourself. I think I go in like cyclical patterns with myself. Like I'm starting to learn that it's all not like linear, and I think like themes in my music explore this kind of cyclical feeling of being kind of in chaos, being out of chaos, with yourself, with other people, but then also you get those kind of glimmers of being like at peace with yourself, at peace with other
Yeah.
people, which I think is important. And they're all really closely related. So I think it's just how solitude just like has that constant thread through the middle.
Yeah, yeah. And is that something that you're drawing on? I know a lot of the pieces of yours available online are meditations and like longer meditative improvisations as well on the guitar. Are you pulling from that solitude, or is there like a different genesis for those
I think
pieces?
so. I think like I grew up when I was at uni, sorry, not when I was growing up. I watched a lot of like street performers, and I thought the best ones were ones that could take you out of your day and moment and take you on like a journey within a
Yeah,
piece. And I think to take someone on their own personal journey is like solitude in and of itself. And it's I think those meditations, what the genesis of them was just it was a way to quiet my brain
mm,
for like half hour, 40 minutes.
yeah,
And I guess in kind of creating a journey and transition in your head to be kind of more peaceful,
yeah.
it's become translatable to other people, I guess.
Yeah, no, they're hip. Yeah, I was having them on this morning. My dog was like really digging them. Like, yeah. She was just like cuddling up. Like she really relaxed to music. So no, they're super hip. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. Getting a little bit more specific, there's a short interview from November 2024 in Clash, where you discuss your single Quattro, and you briefly touch on how that piece represents rebirth and renewal within the context of kind of drifting back to your Sicilian roots after ignoring them. Why was it important for you to revisit your roots, and how did that manifest in the music?
I think like the number four is like really important. There's like cycles of the moon. There's like four seems to permeate through like every kind of culture. And I think I was kind of coming back to my heritage because I think like growing up in the 90s, immigrants often taught to like assimilate as quickly as possible. So we didn't have the luxury of having our culture declared like proudly for us and stuff. So I've had to revisit it and kind of develop a pride for it in my own time. And I think I'm trying to honor that cycle of coming back home to yourself and like reigniting what you potentially didn't have as a kid and kind of bringing that kind of joy back to you in your older years.
There's a really strong visual element for Quattro, the music video, if you want to call it that, and there's quite a strong visual element with a lot of your music. How do you develop that aspect of your art? Yeah.
The director of that one was Ed Carr. He was based in London, and I saw one of his videos, and he does a lot of like 35mm kind of projects that exist in that kind of liminal space where they make you feel something and they communicate like an overall well-bodied idea in like really quick successions. So I think like visuals are really important for me. I think that because I do some of my own videos and then I collaborate with other people. I think the visual language, it always has to exist in that in between, that kind of suspension between like walking through a city and it's just kind of like shaky, or there's a tiny flicker of like street light like going through a little fence or something.
Yeah. So I know as well in past interviews, a lot of folks have asked kind of like what musicians inspire you. And I saw the names Gustavo Santaolalla and Sufjan Stevens keep popping up. And I was wondering what about their art specifically inspires you?
I think like I grew up like Carrie and Lowell was like just an insane album. And I think like the endings of it, where I think Should Have Known Better, where it like ends with that kind of ambient pad from Doveman. There was just like a blend of like, it was the perfect blend of like electronica and folk music, but like with folk sentimentality, but with a really kind of lo-fi philosophy in the pads and stuff. I just loved it as an idea, like a sonic identity, and the writing is just genius. And I think Gustavo came because I play a lot of video games, a lot of like single player stuff, and I found him when I played The Last of Us, and I was just doing some deep diving on him, and I didn't realize he did Brokeback Mountain as well. I think he got like 2 Oscars in like 2 years on the trot. I think it was Brokeback Mountain, then Babel or something.
Yeah.
I think I fell in love with his kind of hyper romantic, like cinematic guitar, and how he could just use one guitar and drive a melody and make it so like all encompassing. Like Babel has so many like threads running through it as a movie, and he just unifies everything with just like a charango motif or a guitar. And listening to him, I was like, oh, there's scope to make music like that. And I think it's always inspiring whenever you hear artists who make music that reaffirm what you think what you hope you can do musically. It's like a nice, it can be done. That stuff can be written. So I think that's why I've always been drawn to him.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned video games. I know, like, huge. At least I grew up playing them. That was like a huge tool of discovery for music as well for me. Like, are you playing any video games right now that are like really inspiring you, or are you just digging?
I'm playing. So my girlfriend got me a Steam Deck, and I'm playing Ori and the Blind Forest. And I've been listening to the soundtrack to that for years.
Yeah, yeah.
And just listening to it, I was like, I know how good this game is going to be based on that soundtrack, and I just wasn't disappointed. It was like, it's just beautiful.
No, totally.
So I'm playing that at the moment. Nothing. Oh, I'm playing Shifu as well.
I don't know that one.
It's it's like an independent game studio, and you basically are a student whose master's been killed, and you're on like a path of vengeance, and it's like a really difficult game. It's really fluid combat, but every time you die, you get resurrected slightly older.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So you have like 4 or 5 years, and basically you get better at combos, but you start to get weaker as you get older. So the aim is not to die so much, because then you're really old.
Yeah, that's a cool mechanic.
Really
like,
cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. Because like I feel like, sorry, I'm gonna nerd out for a minute, but like I went through like Hades, like I did Hades, and you know you're just like always like dungeon crawling, right? And you're always just leveling up. But like I like the mechanic of you're kind of you're getting handicapped as well on top of it. That's hip.
I like games because I've always loved soul games, like Dark Souls and stuff. I've only played a little bit of that, but that was too much for where I was. Like, because I've just gone from playing God of War Ragnarok, and you can't go from playing something that's like so linear and just like dodge, block, combo to go into something where the enemy is just like kill you in one hit.
Yeah. Getting back to your music. No, kind of a big question. Do you have any philosophy or ethos around your creating?
I think I always start with a guitar idea.
Yeah.
I always start with guitar and vocals, and if I feel like it could be a good song or a good piece, then I think it's worth exploring. I think doing this first album, I've learned that sometimes when you have your producer hat on too tight, you kind of obsess with the sound of a track too much, to the point where maybe the song's kind of lost in it.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot this album, and I think the core has to be melody. I think that's my ethos. Melody. Yeah. If the melody sings, and if it makes you feel something on its own, I think that's really important to me.
Yeah.
As an ethos.
And once you have that melody, what does that creative process look like afterwards?
I usually treat it as like a sample, and I'll build kind of textures around it. Sometimes it'll be a piece, sometimes it'll be a song. It just depends where my headspace is at. But if it's a song, the guitar will go down. I'll start kind of doing like Sigur Rós kind of sounding vowels, and then I'll put words to it. I think for me, I learned that from a friend who would just kind of say sounds he liked. And I think that shaped a lot of how I wrote lyrics. Because if you can get the sound right without lyrics, then it's just about painting the right imagery with the lyric. And then with writing pieces, it's just about how much you can move people, whether it needs lifts texturally. Like, I've got a waltz coming out on the album that's just a guitar, and it was all it was needed. Like, we were in the studio and we were like, should we add strings, should we add this? But I think sometimes you have to just say no more. Which I think is the hardest thing ever. We are just like, more is good, and more isn't good all the time.
Kind of sit in that simplicity sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I'm hoping to really embrace the simplicity more next album. There were glimpses of it this album where I was like, oh, that's, because it's all building building process, isn't it? It's like you do that and you see what worked in your creative spells and what didn't. And I think the next album's going to be way more simple, and way more direct in its simplicity. I think that's probably the most important thing for me.
Yeah. After South by Southwest, any projects, albums, events coming up that you're really excited about?
I'm doing a couple of movies at the moment, scoring. I can't say anything more than
Good.
that. And then I'm going on tour. I'm doing Ireland, and then I'm doing Europe. Almost sold out Paris, which is really fun.
Hey, congrats. Yeah.
Which is really surprising that I've sold out Paris faster than London.
Yeah.
But that's the weird thing about music, isn't it? Apart from that, nothing else, to be honest. It's gonna be an empty summer. I mean, things will crop up.
No,
I'll probably
totally.
start writing the second album. I should start writing the second album.
Yeah.
My managers are freaking out because they're like, when you started it, and I'm just
Sure.
like, soon.
I mean, is there anything creatively that you're like hoping to experiment with in that time? Yeah.
I kind of want to go like more analog. I want to have
Sure.
like some more analog synths, some more like running stuff through tape machines and stuff. Having a more throwaway process with a lot of it instead of just locking in. I think like if you can master, I want to try and explore like simplicity and just being all throwaway with the second album and just like trying different things. I think that's my aim this summer is to try new things with the album and see what I can come up with.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming out. And where can people see you this South by Southwest?
I am playing at Cooper's tomorrow for the classical showcase at 9 p.m.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. You need anything?
I wasn't waffling too much, was I?